Before the letter speaks its first word, something must be seen. Among the printed items packed inside this envelope, Dorothy is now holding the first photograph. This image was not chosen randomly. It was prepared specifically for this message. Look at it carefully. Because what you are about to read in the letter, this is what it looks like from heaven's side. Something happened in the spiritual realm today that does not happen often. A door was opened, not the kind of door that swings on ordinary hinges, not the kind that yields to human effort or human deserving. A door that opens only when the Creator himself reaches forward and declares, "Now, open it, now, for this one." And today, he declared that over you. I am Michael, and I have been running, not from anything, toward something, toward you, toward this precise hour, toward the specific window of time in which this message could reach you and accomplish exactly what it was sent to accomplish. The assignment I carry today was not issued yesterday. It was not drafted last week. It was designated for this day. This moment, the exact intersection of your life and this message. Because what the Creator intends to release into your existence requires an act of divine authorization that only today's alignment could unlock. Before I go further, set something down. I am not asking you to set down your skepticism. I understand it completely. I respect every scar that produced it. What I am asking you to set down is the story, the private narrative you have constructed across years of disappointment, the one that assigns blame and explanation to your struggles in ways that feel honest, because they point mostly at yourself. That story has been one of the enemy's most effective instruments against you. And today, I am replacing it with the true account. Hear what is happening right now, not in your home, not in your visible circumstances, not in the ordinary world where your eyes perceive only the unremarkable surface of another day. I am speaking about what is unfolding in the spiritual dimension that overlays your life like a second skin, the realm that is as real as the chair beneath you and the air filling your lungs. But that operates beyond the threshold of ordinary human perception. Right now, there is a gathering, a commanded assembly of heavenly forces called specifically, urgently, around your name. This is not a poetic image. This is a description of a spiritual reality unfolding even as these words enter your hearing. Celestial beings assigned to the boundaries of your life have been repositioned today, moved from their ordinary stations of passive guardianship into an active, forward-facing posture of full intervention. Something that has been permitted to operate against you for a very long time has had its authorization revoked today, and the forces of heaven are moving swiftly to fill every space that revocation has opened. The reason this is happening today, and not a year ago, not 5 years ago, not in that season when you most desperately needed it, requires me to explain something about the way divine timing operates, because I know that question is already forming in you. Why now? Why not sooner? And the answer is not that the Creator was inattentive in those earlier seasons. It is not that your prayers during those long, quiet years dissolved into nothing. Every single prayer you have spoken in the dark, every whispered petition from a heart too exhausted to form complete sentences, every tear that fell as its own silent language, every moment of raw, unperformed faith that nobody witnessed, they were all heard. They were all recorded. And they have been accumulating in the heavenly court like a gathering tide, building toward a force of breakthrough that is far larger than anything a single earlier intervention could have released. Today, the tide breaks. Today, the accumulation reaches the shore. Stop. Before this letter goes further, Dorothy is now retrieving one of the printed prediction cards from the envelope. This is a declaration sent from heaven. Read every single word on this card. Let it land. Because what it says is not a comfort. It is a command from the courts above. Listen now. Before I address what has happened in your own lifetime, before I name the forces that have moved against your specific circumstances, I must take you somewhere further back. Because what you are experiencing did not begin with you. It did not originate in a choice you made, or a door you carelessly opened, or a weakness you carried. It has roots that extend behind you, through the women who carried you into the world, through the generations that shaped the spiritual landscape you were born into. There is something in your family line that has been passed forward, like an unexamined inheritance, from one generation to the next. A pattern of almost. A recurring experience in the lives of the women before you. Genuine promise that arrived and then dissolved. Love that came close and then contracted. Provision that approached and then veered away at the last moment. Faith that burned brightly and then, under the accumulated weight of unanswered expectation, dimmed to something quieter and more guarded. You may have witnessed this in your mother, perhaps in her mother before her. The unmistakable sense that a particular ceiling existed in the experience of the women in your family. A ceiling that determined how high things could rise before something invisible reached down and pressed them back. That ceiling was not natural. It was not the inevitable outcome of character or circumstance, or the general difficulty of being a woman navigating a world that has not always honored the weight of what women carry. It was imposed, generationally, through spiritual agreements made, knowingly or unknowingly, in generations before yours, through wounds that were never healed and therefore were transmitted rather than resolved, through curses spoken over the bloodline with deliberate malice by those who perceived the potential of your family's spiritual heritage and moved to contain it before it could fully flower. You were born into a spiritual war that had already been running for decades before you arrived. Do not let that overwhelm you. Let it explain. Let it finally give language to the pattern you have sensed. but could never fully articulate. Let it answer the question that has lived quietly beneath the surface of your prayers for years. Why does this keep happening? Why, no matter what I do differently, does the same essential shape of obstruction return? Today, the generational thread is being cut, not merely managed, not simply reduced, severed, with the full authority of heaven applied to the root rather than the branches. The pattern that repeated through your mother and her mother will not reach your children. It will not reach your grandchildren. The ceiling is being demolished today, and what replaces it is not a higher ceiling. It is open sky. Now I must describe to you the interior experience of a life lived under sustained spiritual obstruction, not to rehearse your pain, but to make you recognize what I am about to name, to make you feel the precision of it. Because one of the cruelest aspects of what has been done to you is that it was designed to remain invisible, deniable, even to you. Hear what it feels like from the inside. There is a quality of effort without proportion. You work, you give, you pray, you try with everything you have, and the return is consistently less than the investment should logically produce. You watch people around you who appear to carry none of the spiritual intentionality you bring to your life, and their doors swing open with an ease that yours simply do not. The gap between your faith and your experience is wide enough to produce a specific, private, theological pain. Dorothy is now holding the second photograph printed from this envelope. This image was sealed alongside the letter for a reason. Look at it. This is the source of the pattern that has run through your family for generations. And what you are about to see is not destruction. It is liberation. Look at where Michael's sword meets the root. There is also the quality of proximity, without arrival. Breakthrough comes near you, repeatedly. You can feel it. Others sometimes detect it from the outside, commenting that something good appears to be approaching for you. And then, at the final moment, it shifts. The opportunity pivots. The relationship destabilizes. The provision reroutes. And you are left standing in the place where the blessing almost was, collecting the familiar and unbearable weight of another near miss. And there is a specific kind of exhaustion that belongs only to this experience, not the tiredness of overwork, which resolves with rest, but the bone-deep weariness of sustained hope under sustained resistance, the fatigue of a woman who has not given up, but who carries the accumulated cost of 10,000 mornings that began in faith and ended in the same place she started. Hear this clearly. None of that was your failure. None of it was the consequence of insufficient faith or inadequate prayer or a character flaw that made you less deserving. Every bit of it was the signature of an intentional, specifically targeted spiritual campaign against your life. A campaign that has had a name and an architect and a purpose. And today, that campaign is being dismantled. Understand what the Creator is releasing today. This is not a vague spiritual improvement spread thinly across all areas of your life. What is being restored is specific. It has structure. It has shape. It has sequence. And you must understand the 3 doors through which that restoration flows, because knowing them positions you to receive each one with the faith clarity that enables full reception. The first door is the door of identity. This is the door the enemy struck first, because it is the door upon which everything else depends. Your identity, in the truest and most essential sense of that word, is not your name or your history, or the roles you have occupied in the lives of others. It is the knowing, the settled, unargued, interior certainty that you are seen, that you are known, that you are of singular and irreplaceable value in the eyes of the one who made you. When this knowing is intact, you make decisions differently. You tolerate different treatment. You speak with a different authority. You receive differently. You set boundaries from a place of security rather than anxiety. You walk into rooms with a particular kind of ease that others both perceive and respond to. The attack on this door began, for most of you, in childhood, through messages that arrived early and arrived often. Not always through cruelty. Sometimes through the quiet inadequacy of love that was present but incomplete, through a father who could not see you fully, through a mother who passed her own wounds on without meaning to, through early experiences of being overlooked, compared unfavorably, treated as though the version of you that existed was slightly less than what was wanted or needed, through words spoken in moments of frustration that lodged in the deep place where identity is formed and calcified there over decades into something that felt like truth. Today, the Creator is reclaiming that deep place. He is standing at the very foundation of your identity and speaking over it what He spoke before any of those early voices ever arrived. He is saying what has always been true about you in the courts of heaven, where the distorted reports of your worth that the enemy has filed across decades hold no weight whatsoever. He is saying this now. Hear it. Receive it. You are mine, fully mine, valued completely, known entirely, never, not once, forgotten. Receive that into the place where the wound lives, not into your mind, which will try to evaluate its plausibility. Into the wound itself. Let it reach the scar. Today, the scar begins to change. There is a third printed item from this envelope. Dorothy is holding it now. This photograph was sealed inside specifically for this moment in the letter, for the moment when identity is being restored. Look at the woman in this image. Look at whose hand is on her shoulder. This is what is happening to you right now, in the dimension you cannot see with your eyes.
I need to stop here, because I know what some of you are feeling right now. Something in this message is going deep. I can feel it in my own chest reading it, and I have read this letter 4 full times today. Some of you may notice something opening in you that has been shut for a very long time. That is not this video doing something to you. That is the part of you that already knows this message is real, recognizing itself in what you are hearing. Michael goes on from here to describe the second door and the detail with which he describes what has been happening in your closest family relationships. I have to prepare you. It is specific. He names things you may not have admitted to yourself, things you have been carrying in silence. If you need one breath before I continue, take it now, and then stay with me. The part of this letter that holds the most immediate breakthrough for most of the women watching today is still ahead. Please.
The second door is the door of family. And I must speak to this door with particular force because it is the location of some of the deepest wounds in the women receiving this message today. Not wounds of ambition or opportunity or financial circumstance. Wounds that cut to the most fundamental human need of all. The need to belong. To be loved without condition. To be held in the permanent embrace of people who choose you not because of what you produce or what you provide, but simply because you are theirs and they are yours. There are women watching today who are experiencing a distance in their family relationships that no amount of effort has been able to close. A son or daughter who is pulled away in ways that resist all explanation. A grandchild being raised in a home that has grown cold to the grandmother's influence. A marriage that has become two people sharing space without sharing souls. A sibling who once knew you better than anyone and who now feels like a complete stranger. The specific shape of your family pain belongs uniquely to your life, but the underlying source of that pain, across every variation and combination, is identical. Know this. Family is the primary channel through which the Creator designed His blessing to flow across generations. It is the vessel through which faith is transmitted, through which love compounds, through which the testimony of one generation becomes the foundation of the next. This is precisely why the enemy makes it a primary target. A family unified in faith and love becomes a force of generational blessing. A family fractured by unresolved pain, by misunderstanding that was spiritually engineered rather than naturally arising, becomes instead a vessel of generational wound. The fractures in your family did not all arrive through ordinary human failure. Some of them were deliberately placed. Seeds of misunderstanding sown in specific conversations at specific moments. Distortions introduced into how your children or grandchildren perceive you, often through the voice of someone close to them who had reasons of their own to ensure that the bond between you and them remained strained. The enemy knows that a grandmother's prayers over her grandchildren are among the most spiritually potent forces in a family system. It knows that a mother's intercession is armor around her children, and so it has worked aggressively to create distance between you and the people your love was designed to protect. Today, I, Michael, stand at the entrance of every fractured family relationship in your life, not to force reconciliation on a timeline that belongs to human will, but to remove the spiritual obstruction that has been artificially maintaining those fractures, to restore what was never meant to be broken, to begin with. In the days following your reception of this message, pay close attention to what shifts in your family connections. A text that arrives from someone who has been quiet for too long. A phone call that opens a conversation, waiting years to begin. A moment of unexpected warmth in an interaction that has grown habitually cold. A grandchild who suddenly wants to spend time with you. Do not analyze these movements too quickly. Simply receive them as the first evidence of a work heaven has already set in motion. Dorothy is now retrieving the next prediction card from the envelope. This one is for someone specific. Someone watching right now who has been waiting, who has been checking their phone, who has stopped expecting the message to come. Read this card slowly. Do not rush past it. The third door is the door of provision, and I will approach this with the directness that a warrior uses, because too many women in the season of life to which this message is directed have been conditioned to feel that it is either spiritually inappropriate or personally shameful to speak plainly about financial need, financial limitation, and the particular dignity wound that comes from being a woman of faith and capability, who has still not experienced the material provision that her faithfulness should, by any honest accounting, have produced by now. The financial dimension of your life has been under sustained attack. This is not a general observation. This is a specific declaration about your specific situation. The Creator designated a measure of material provision for your life that would have enabled you to live with freedom and to give with generosity and to move through the world without the particular weight of financial anxiety that has been your companion for far too long. That provision was not a reward for performance. It was designated as your inheritance as a beloved child of the Most High, and it has been consistently and deliberately intercepted. Opportunities that should have produced financial increase were diverted at the last moment. Investments were eroded by circumstances that defied ordinary explanation. Relationships with people who carried resources meant to be redirected toward you were damaged or severed before they could accomplish their purpose. The financial ceiling you have been pressing against is not the ceiling of your capacity. It is not the ceiling of your intelligence or your work ethic or your creativity. It is a spiritually imposed ceiling. And like all spiritually imposed ceilings, it yields to divine authority. Today, the Creator's full authority is being applied to that ceiling. It is cracking. A bill that suddenly resolves through an unexpected channel, an opportunity that resurfaces from a direction you had completely abandoned. A conversation that opens a door you had stopped believing was available to you. A resource that arrives through a channel so unexpected that your first instinct will be to distrust it. Do not distrust it. Receive it. It carries your name. And hear this specifically. There are women watching today who made financial sacrifices for their children, for their families, at significant personal cost. Women who gave when giving was not comfortable. Women who carried financial burdens that were never originally theirs, out of love and faithfulness, without complaint. Heaven has recorded every single one of those acts of sacrifice with perfect precision. And what heaven is releasing is not merely a restoration of what was lost. It is a recompense for the investment, the full weight of divine gratitude for faithfulness expressed through generosity when generosity was genuinely costly. Your sacrifice was seen. And today, it is being honored. Dorothy now holds the fourth photograph. This was printed and sealed inside this envelope as a promise, not a symbol, a promise. Look at the hands in this image. Look at what is being poured. This is what the door of provision looks like when heaven opens it. This photograph was prepared for you. Now, I must describe something that very few people possess the spiritual vocabulary to name. But a large number of the women receiving this message today will recognize it with immediate, almost painful clarity the moment they hear it. I am going to describe what it is like to carry grief that has no official name. Grief that the ordinary structures of human sympathy were never designed to hold. Not grief for a person who died or a relationship that visibly ended. The grief of a version of your life that never arrived. You can see it clearly even now. The version that was supposed to unfold. The marriage that was supposed to deepen rather than dissolve. The career that was supposed to allow you to use the full scope of what you carry, rather than a carefully managed fraction of it. The creative gifts that were supposed to find their audience. The circle of women you were supposed to be surrounded by in this season. Women who would understand you without effort and love you without agenda. The version of yourself who was supposed to be standing in the place where you stand now, but with more peace, more freedom, more of the specific fullness that you knew, even as a young woman, was somewhere ahead of you. You have grieved that missing life without ever fully allowing yourself to claim the grief. Because the world issues limited permissions for this kind of mourning, you grieve the death of a person, and the world makes room. You grieve a relationship, and there is at least a name for it. But the grief of the life unlived, the destiny obstructed before it could fully materialize, that grief has lived in you without ceremony, without acknowledgement, without the dignity of being called what it truly is, a real and significant loss that deserves to be genuinely mourned. Today, the Creator acknowledges it. He names it. He honors the full weight of it. And then he does something extraordinary. He declares that what was supposed to unfold has not been canceled. It has been preserved. The version of your life that was designed from the beginning, carrying the full expression of your gifts and your love and your purpose, has been held in a divine reserve, protected from permanent loss by the faithfulness of a God who does not revise his intentions for his beloved. What was delayed is not destroyed. What was obstructed is not obliterated. What was held back by spiritual interference is being released now with the full force of heaven behind it. You are not too late. In the economy of heaven, there is no too late. There's only this moment of divine realignment, in which what was always meant to be returns to the path that was always its destination. There is a prediction card in this envelope that belongs to this moment, to the grief that has had no name, to the life that was preserved when you thought it was lost. Dorothy is holding it now. This is not a comfort. This is a declaration. Read it. Receive it as the authority it was sent with.
I want to step outside the letter for just a moment, because I think this is important. What Michael just described, the unnamed grief of the life unlived. I have read more comments on this channel than I can count from women who had never heard anyone give language to that specific thing they carry. Women who wrote to say, "How does Michael know? How does he describe the exact interior of what I feel?" And the honest answer is what this channel has always been founded on. These letters come from a place that does not need second-hand information. The section I'm about to read now is the section where Michael addresses the specific person or persons who contributed most directly to the obstruction you have experienced. He names what they did 3 specific methods, and then he names what you are to do with that knowledge. This part matters deeply. Please stay.
Hear me now about the architect of your obstruction. Not to fill you with fear, not to send you spiraling into investigation and accusation, but because this understanding, received clearly and then deliberately set aside in favor of your restoration, is an essential part of the spiritual work being completed today. There is a specific kind of person I must describe, not by name, not by their relationship to you. I will describe them by method, by the precise techniques that were deployed against you. Because when you recognize the method, you recognize the source. And when you recognize the source, the method loses its power to continue operating in your blind spots. The first method was the weaponization of your trust. You are a woman whose instinct is toward openness, toward extending the benefit of the doubt. That quality is a grace, but it was exploited. Someone used your openness as an entry point. They positioned themselves as trustworthy by deliberately mirroring the values they knew you held. And behind that performance, they were quietly and consistently building a case against your reputation in the minds of people whose opinion held power over your doors. The second method was shame, strategically introduced at precisely the moments when your momentum was building. A comment that seemed offhand, but landed with surgical precision. A comparison that diminished your achievement just as it was taking shape. A question about your judgment delivered deliberately in the presence of others. These were not conversation accidents. They were timed interventions, designed to introduce self-doubt at the exact moment when self-doubt was most destructive to your forward movement. The third method was the isolation of your intercessors. The people in your life who carried genuine faith and genuine love for you were moved, wherever possible, away from your proximity. Through engineered conflict, through misunderstanding deliberately introduced into relationships where none previously existed. Because your spiritual community, the people who pray with you and for you, represents the greatest threat to the operation mounted against your life. Isolated from them, you become exponentially more exposed to every other form of attack. Today, I am naming these 3 methods so they can no longer operate in the dark. What is named and understood cannot continue to function in shadow. Every entry point created through these methods is being sealed today. Every connection broken by them is being considered for restoration today. Every prayer of intercession disrupted by their isolation is being replaced with a direct, uninterruptible line between your spirit and the throne of the Creator, a line that no strategy of the enemy can intercept. Dorothy is now holding the 5th photograph from this envelope. Look at it carefully. What you see in this image is not a battle. It is an ending. The chains that were named in those 3 methods are being cut right now in the spiritual realm over your life. This picture was printed and sealed into this delivery before you ever pressed play, because heaven knew this moment was coming for you. Now, I must address a question that has lived quietly in you for a long time. A question you may not have fully allowed yourself to articulate because it carries an edge of accusation that makes a faithful woman deeply uncomfortable. But it is a real question, and it demands a real answer. The question is this: if you truly matter to the Creator the way you have always been taught that you matter, then why did He allow this to go on for so long? Not the general difficulty of human life, but this, the specific, targeted, sustained assault on your particular life. Where was the intervention? Where were the angels while the damage was being done? This question is not faithless. The most courageous people in the entire history of spiritual literature asked versions of this same question, and I will answer it not with a theological deflection, but with the directness of a warrior. From your vantage point, inside the suffering, inside the seasons of unanswered prayer, what you experienced was absence, silence, distance, a heaven that seemed to observe without intervening. That was a real experience. I will not diminish it. From the vantage point of the heavenly realm, the picture was profoundly different. There was never a moment of absence, not one. Never a season of inattention, never. Every single point of pain in your life was present to the Creator with a completeness and a precision that your deepest suffering does not come close to exceeding. He did not watch your pain from a distance. He was in it, fully, bearing the weight of it with you in ways that operated beneath the level of your awareness. And He was doing something in you through every layer of that painful experience that could only be done precisely there. Building depth, building compassion, building spiritual perception, building an unshakable understanding of what it means to choose faith, not because circumstances validate it, but because something at the core of your being knows the Creator is good. That quality, that understanding, is now the foundation of the next chapter of your life. And it is a foundation that could not have been laid in comfort. It required the exact specific weight of what you carried. And now, everything built upon it will be unshakable. There is a prediction card that belongs right here, at this exact moment in this letter. After the question about why, after the answer that does not flinch. Dorothy is holding this card now. It does not offer an apology. It offers a declaration. Read it and let it reach the place in you that has been asking that question for years. Receive what I am about to tell you about the signs that were sent to you in the season leading up to today. Because the Creator does not move into a person's life with this level of intervention without sending advance communication. Did you experience an unusual dream? Not ordinary processing of daily concerns, something with a different quality. Something that felt as though it carried a message you could not quite decode, but could not dismiss. A dream in which someone you loved appeared and spoke with unusual, startling clarity. A dream in which something long lost was returned to you in a form so vivid that waking from it carried a specific quality of grief. These were not random. These were communications. Advanced signals from a heaven that was already moving toward this moment. Did you find yourself thinking repeatedly about a specific person? Someone whose name surfaced in your thoughts without apparent trigger? Someone you'd not seen or spoken to in a long time who arrived in your awareness with a quality of urgency, as though something between you remained unfinished, as though something was about to shift. This too was not random. The Creator was already drawing together the relational threads that belonged to your restoration before the restoration itself arrived. Did you experience a sudden, unaccountable moment of hope, perhaps in the middle of a difficult day? An unexpected sense of something about to change? A brief lifting? A window in which the weight you ordinarily carry felt lighter than usual? A moment your rational mind dismissed as a passing mood? That moment was a signal. The advance pressure wave of the breakthrough already in motion from the heavenly side, reaching you through the only channels available before this message could arrive. Today is the arrival of what those signs were pointing toward. Today, the signal becomes the reality. Today, the advanced communication becomes the actual event. Dorothy is holding the 6th photograph now. This image was printed for the moment of divine signals. Look at what is depicted here, what you have been experiencing, the dreams, the recurring thoughts, the unexpected hope. Look at what those moments looked like from heaven's vantage point. This is what was being sent. This is what was reaching you.
This card, I need you to hear what this card says. I am going to read it aloud before Dorothy continues the letter. It says, ask yourself what you stopped praying for. Heaven did not stop. Michael addresses this in the next section of the letter in a way I was not prepared for. He is going to speak specifically about the prayers you abandoned, not the ones you still bring, the specific ones you quietly retired because the silence around them became too heavy to keep holding. He knows what they were. He names the categories. And what he says about them is going to change something fundamental in how you understand what these years have been about. This is the section that the women who watch this channel later tell me was the exact moment when everything broke open for them. Please, stay.
I know what you stopped praying for. I was present in the precise moments when each of those prayers was quietly retired. I watched you conclude, not through a dramatic act of unbelief, but through the gentle, grief-softened decision of a woman who has been disappointed enough times to stop placing fresh hope in a specific direction, that some things were simply not going to change. I am going to name what you stopped praying for, and I need you to hear each one. You stopped praying for a specific relationship to be restored. You still love the person. You likely still pray for their general well-being, but the specific, bold, persistent prayer for actual restoration of the connection between you and them, the prayer that once carried the force of genuine expectation, you quietly put that prayer down because the distance endured long enough that continuing to believe for its reversal began to feel like self-deception. You stopped praying for a specific dream, a creative expression, or a calling, or an aspiration you carried for years, and that at some point became too painful to keep lifting before a heaven that seemed uninterested in opening the doors through which it could have been expressed. You became realistic. You became wise in the way that grief, sometimes mimics wisdom. And the dream was folded up and placed somewhere behind you, where it would not hurt as much. You stopped praying with expectation about your finances. The specific boldness with which you once asked for significant financial shift, the audacity of asking for the kind of provision that would genuinely change the texture of your daily life, that audacity became too costly to maintain across years without visible result. So you asked for less, and your reduced asking shaped your reduced receiving. Today, I am returning to you the prayers you put down, not demanding that you manufacture emotional energy to begin again, as though those silent years never happened, but declaring to you that the silence was not rejection. It was the extended preparation of something larger than what your original prayer was asking for. The relational restoration coming toward you exceeds the version you were praying for. The creative calling opening for you in this season is broader in its reach than the version you originally envisioned. The financial shift being released today carries a weight of provision that your most audacious earlier prayer did not fully stretch to contain. Heaven did not silence those prayers because the answer was no. Heaven kept working on them after you stopped asking. And today, the answer to the prayers you abandoned begins to arrive. Watch for it. Dorothy is now holding the next prediction card from this envelope. This one is for the prayers you put down, the ones you stopped expecting to be answered. Read this card slowly. Read it as the authoritative declaration from heaven that it is. Because this is not printed sentiment. This is a decree. Now I will speak to you directly about your voice, every dimension of that word, because one of the most consistent and specific casualties of sustained spiritual obstruction in the life of a woman is the gradual erasure of her sense of permission to take up space, to speak, to be heard, to claim the dignity of her perspective, her experience, her gifts, to enter a room and allow herself to be fully present rather than managing herself into a smaller shape so as not to occupy too much ground. You are not born with a small voice. I know this because I was present at your creation, and what was placed in you at that moment was not designed for concealment. You were given a capacity for expression, in whatever specific form it takes in your life, that was meant to influence, to move people, to alter the direction of conversations and communities and individual lives. Not necessarily from a stage or a platform, though for some of you, that is exactly what is coming, but in the specific, irreplaceable ways that only you can do it. In the kitchen of your home, in the circle of women who know you, in the relationship with your daughter or your granddaughter, or the younger woman at church who has been watching you longer than you realize, absorbing the way you carry yourself and using it as a template for how faith looks in the body of a woman who has endured. Hear what happened to your voice. It was systematic. Every time you spoke and were dismissed, something small was added to the weight of caution around future speaking. Every time you offered your perspective and it was minimized or subtly ridiculed by someone whose opinion carried social force in your environment, a calculation was made in your interior life. The risk of speaking outweighs the potential benefit. Every time you were correct and were not credited, or were wrong once, and found that wrongness was remembered far longer than any rightness, you learned to hold back the fullness of your thought, to offer only the parts that felt safe enough. Today, the Creator is removing the weight of that accumulated caution, restoring the original freedom that existed before those memories arrived. The freedom of a woman who knows that her voice carries divine authorization, that when she speaks from genuine love and genuine faith, she is functioning as an instrument of the Creator's own communication into the world. That function cannot be silenced by the dismissiveness of people who lacked the capacity to receive what she was offering. Your voice is returning. Today, a sentence you speak that you might previously have swallowed, a moment of clarity you offer in conversation, rather than holding it privately behind an agreeable expression, a piece of your story you share with someone who needed exactly that piece. These are the beginning of something that will grow. And as it grows, it will draw toward you the people who were always meant to be in the orbit of your expression, the ones waiting without knowing what they are waiting for the specific and irreplaceable thing that only you can say. There is a photograph in this envelope specifically for this section, specifically for the restoration of the voice. Dorothy is holding it now. Look at the woman in this image. Look at who stands behind her. Look at who is amplifying her. Because what is depicted here is not a stage moment. It is a kitchen moment, a family circle moment, a quiet conversation that changes everything. This is you. In the days ahead, a harvest is coming into your life that you have been sowing toward for a very long time. A harvest that includes every seed of faithfulness you planted in soil that appeared completely barren. Every act of kindness extended without any expectation of return. Every prayer spoken over someone else when your own needs were pressing and unanswered. Every moment of generosity when generosity was genuinely costly. Every choice to forgive when you had every legitimate reason to hold the debt. Every morning you rose and oriented yourself toward faith. Again, when the previous day had given you compelling reason to stay down. These are not small things. In the economy of heaven, where a single act of faithfulness in genuinely difficult circumstances outweighs 1,000 acts of faithfulness in comfort, what you have been accumulating across these difficult years is of extraordinary value. And a harvest does not arrive in proportion to what you remember sowing. It arrives in proportion to what was actually planted, including the seeds that felt so insignificant at the time of planting that you have entirely forgotten them. Prepare yourself to be surprised by what returns. Prepare to receive blessing through channels you had completely discounted. Prepare to be moved by the specificity of what heaven has preserved. The kindness you extended to a specific person 30 years ago comes back through a connection that person maintained to someone who now holds a door open for you. The prayer you prayed in your car during a commute you barely remember, for someone whose name you may have since forgotten, returns to you through that person's intersection with your life at exactly the right moment. Heaven is precise, and the harvest flowing toward you in this season is as precisely calibrated as the sowing that produced it. I want to address now the women watching this message from every corner of the earth, because the experience of faith and spiritual warfare carries cultural textures that demand to be honored. The women watching from Latin American nations, from the Caribbean, from communities where the spiritual dimension of life is woven deeply into the very fabric of daily existence. These women often carry an understanding of spiritual warfare that is more direct and less apologetic than in cultures where the language of spiritual attack has been domesticated into metaphor. You know, in ways sometimes dismissed by those around you as superstition, that some of what has moved against your life was deliberately directed. You have lived close enough to the reality of dark spiritual operation to understand that not everything that happens is innocent. You are not wrong. You are not being dramatic. You are accurate. And that accuracy is today becoming a source of authority. Because what you can accurately perceive, you are now equipped to address with the full backing of heaven standing behind your declaration. To the women in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, to those whose cultural context has sometimes made the direct language of spiritual warfare feel slightly uncomfortable, the discomfort does not change the reality. Today, the same liberation that arrives for the woman who has always called it what it is, arrives equally for you. By whatever name you call it, the effect is identical. The oppression is ending. Today, Dorothy is holding the next prediction card. This one does not belong to one country or one language or one background. It was printed for every woman receiving this message, from every city named in this letter, from every nation watching. Read it slowly. Say it aloud if you can. Because what is written on this card is not information. It is a sentence that heaven has passed over your life. Now, here, the 30 days ahead. Because restoration is not an abstract spiritual event with no earthly schedule. What the Creator is releasing today has a timeline. It has phases, and understanding those phases positions you to recognize each wave rather than missing it through the fog of ordinary daily life. In the first 7 days, the primary movement will be interior, a quality of settledness arriving where anxiety lived, a reduction in the volume of the inner self-critical voice, a capacity for genuine stillness and moments that previously triggered immediate restlessness. Do not underestimate these interior shifts. They are the foundation being laid for everything that follows. A woman whose interior landscape is being restructured by divine peace can hold more without spilling it. She can sustain breakthrough without the subconscious patterns of self-sabotage that were previously installed in her. In the second and third weeks, the movement externalizes. Watch for unexpected contact, unexpected conversation, unexpected alignment of circumstances that opens doors you had closed in your own expectation. Watch for provision appearing through routes that completely bypass your ordinary logic. Watch for a growing clarity about a specific next step that has been obscured by confusion for a long time. In the 4th week and into the months beyond, the harvest builds. Relationships that began thawing in the early days arrive at warmer ground. Opportunities that opened in weeks 2 and 3 reach fuller expression. The interior peace established in the first 7 days produces a visible stability that people around you notice and are drawn toward. And each wave of restoration adds to the previous one. Each answered prayer increases the faith with which the next is carried. This is not a single moment of favor. This is the beginning of a season, a long, abundant, purposeful season. And it begins today. Dorothy is now holding the 8th photograph from this envelope. This is the image for what is coming, not the past, not the suffering. What is coming? Look at who is in this picture. Look at them. Look at the light surrounding each of them. That light belongs to no single country, no single culture, no single background. It belongs to the covenant, and the covenant includes you. Before I seal this letter, I must give you a declaration to speak, because words matter. Your words specifically matter in ways that exceed ordinary language. When you speak with genuine faith from the foundation of divine covenant, you are participating in the creative process through which heaven's intentions become earthly realities. This is not incantation. This is the alignment of a human will with a divine will through the vehicle of honest, believing speech. Speak this now. In whatever privacy your circumstances allow, form these words with the full weight of your intention behind every syllable. Creator of my soul, I have been carrying more than I was ever meant to carry alone. Today, I release it into your authority. I receive, without reservation, the restoration you have prepared for my life. I receive the return of my identity, the healing of my family, the release of provision into my hands, the return of my voice and the return of my dreams. I acknowledge that what was done against me was real, and I declare that its authority over my life ends today. I forgive what must be forgiven, not because the wound was not real, but because I refuse to let the wound outlast its season. I trust you with the justice, and I open my life, every room of it, every locked door and every sealed chamber, to the complete and unstoppable work of restoration designated for this day. Amen. If you spoke those words, something shifted. Something real in the spiritual dimension of your life was repositioned by the act of that declaration. The Creator heard every syllable. The angels present in your space recorded every word, and the forces that have been invested in your diminishment felt every note of the authority that your honest, humble, believing voice carried. You are not the same woman you were before you received this message. Something has been opened. Something has been sealed shut. Something has been returned to its rightful position. And the life that follows this moment will carry the evidence of what happened here, in this quiet space, in this unremarkable hour of an ordinary day that became, in the courts of heaven, anything but ordinary. Dorothy is holding a prediction card right now. This card was printed for the moment after the declaration, for the woman who just spoke those words, even quietly, even uncertainly, even through tears. Read what is written here. This is not a summary of what you just prayed. This is heaven's response to it. One final thing. I am speaking now to the woman who almost did not stay this long, who paused this message at 3 or 4 different points and almost closed it, who argued with herself about whether to continue, who experienced the specific pull toward dismissal that has been one of the enemy's most reliable strategies. The suggestion that what you are hearing is too good, too specific, too precisely targeted at your life to be anything other than an emotional manipulation designed to capture your hope and then disappoint it once more. I know you are there. I know that argument. And I need you to hear this directly. The argument itself is data. The specific resistance you feel toward receiving this message is disproportionate to the ordinary evaluation you would apply to any other piece of content. You do not fight this hard against messages that do not matter to you. The intensity of the resistance is a direct measure of the importance of what is being offered. The enemy does not mobilize against irrelevant communications. It mobilizes specifically against the ones that carry genuine threat to its operation in a person's life. The fact that you are still here, despite that resistance, is itself an act of faith. A small one, perhaps, possibly the smallest version of faith available in this moment. But small faith is enough. It has always been enough. The Creator does not require a performance of certainty. He requires only the mustard seed opening, the smallest cracking of the door through which His faithfulness can enter. You gave that opening by staying, and what enters through it does not stay small. It fills every room. Today was chosen for you. This message was prepared for this specific day of your specific life. The Creator knew, in the planning of this, exactly where you would be in your journey, exactly what you would have been through, exactly what you needed to hear in exactly these terms, to find the specific opening that lets the light back in. He is that precise. He always has been. And His precision toward you, His beloved, is not diminished by the years of distance you may have felt. If anything, the returning is warmer for the waiting. Go forward from here, not perfectly, not with all your questions answered, not with external evidence already visible in your circumstances, but go forward knowing what you heard today, knowing who sent it, knowing that the season turning is not wishful thinking, but the movement of an ancient promise arriving, finally, at its appointed fulfillment. I am Michael. I was sent for you. And today, my assignment on your behalf is fully underway. Amen. 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 Dorothy is holding the final photograph from this envelope, the last image prepared for this divine delivery. Look at it closely. This is the face of the one who was sent. This is the expression of someone who has completed what they were commanded to complete. Look at his eyes and know that those eyes, in this image, are looking directly at you.
I started this video by telling you that I was going to show you why this one was different. I want to end by asking you if it was. Not out loud, not to me, but in the honest, private place where you actually know the answer. Did something in this letter find you? Not the whole letter. One specific thing, one sentence that landed in a place you did not expect. One moment where you felt recognized in a way that a letter written for everyone cannot do. If the answer is yes, even slightly, then I need you to do one thing before you close this video. Write it in the comments below, not for me, for yourself. Write the one thing this letter named in you that you had stopped allowing yourself to hope for. Write it out. Put it into words. Because words, as Michael just declared over us, participate in the creative process. Your declaration of hope, even in a comment section, is an act of faith. And faith, even this small, is enough. I am also asking you to share this with one woman, just one. Not with an explanation of why she should watch it. Just send it. Trust the same current that carried it to you to carry it to her. The Creator's precise. If it found you at the exact right moment, it will find her at hers. I am Dorothy. This is Letters from Archangel Michael. And today, something began that is very, very good.
Before you close this video, Dorothy is holding the very last item that was packed inside this envelope, the final prediction card. This card was the last thing sealed inside the delivery. Read it now, and then do what it says.